Oh yeah. I just don't know if I take my part. Just trying to look together. Yeah. Just let everybody know that senators are all here.
Who's barking? Right.
All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting, the Sanctity of Life Committee, to order. Let's call a roll. Yep.
Senator Sater.
Here.
Senator Kehoe.
Here.
Senator Kraus. Senator Onder.
Here.
Senator Riddle.
Here.
Senator Smith.
Here.
Senator Chappelle-Nadell.
Aye.
Senator LaLota. Senator Shute.
Here.
Did you call
Senator
me?
Schaefer.
Here. Thanks. All right, this is really our first substantive hearing. We've got a couple witnesses today. We have subpoenaed witnesses. The way I'd like to do this is we'll call them up in order. We will place them under oath. And then I'd like to lay a brief foundation just so it's clear from the record who the witness is. And then I know everyone on the committee will have questions. You won't only get one turn, so let's try and keep a free flow. Otherwise, we could be on just one person for quite a while. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to get their questions out and to gather as much information as they possibly can. I think our first witness that we had subpoenaed is Ms. Tracy Roark. Is she here? Can you please come up? Go ahead and have a seat. And you'll want to make sure that the microphone that you're sitting in front of, the green light, is on.
It is.
Great, thank you. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Roark, I do want to go ahead and place you under oath, as we will do all the witnesses today. So could you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give as a witness in this hearing, pending before this committee, shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Now, are you here today pursuant to a subpoena that was issued to you
Yes.
by this committee?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Can you say your name for the record, please?
Tracy Roark.
Okay. And how are you employed?
I am a health program representative for the Department of Health.
Okay. And specifically as a health program representative at the Department of Health, what is it that you do?
General office support duty, clerical duties.
Okay. Can you tilt that microphone back just a little bit so we can hear you? Sometimes it's hard to...
Okay.
All right, we'll see how that is. How long have you been employed with Health and Senior Services?
Since November 2002.
Okay. What other jobs have you held in that time frame with DHSS?
Mostly clerical support, office support.
Okay. Are you involved in the issuance of ambulatory surgery center licenses in that capacity that you have right now?
Yes, that's one of the clerical support duties, is to issue the license.
Okay. And specifically, what type of clerical support do you add to the issuance of an ambulatory surgery center license?
Give it a license number, make sure all the required information's on the application, and
Can you tilt that back just a little bit more?
closer, or
Yeah, because I mean, we record the hearing, and that's the only way we can record it.
better?
So, yep, there you go.
There you go.
I apologize, but it's not a very powerful microphone system.
And then I just attach it to an email and send it to the facility.
Okay. And how long have you been involved in issuing ambulatory surgery center licenses for DHSS?
Probably for the last 10 years.
10 years. In that time frame, how many ambulatory surgery center licenses would you say that you've been involved in issuing?
Oh my goodness.
It can be a rough estimate. I'm not asking you for an exact number.
Well, there's roughly 100, give or take.
Give or take 100?
Mm-hmm.
A lot? Is that fair
It
to say?
differs from each year to year because they close and open, so I would say probably 1,200 in the last 10 years.
1,200?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a lot. All right, I want to ask you specifically about the ambulatory surgery center license that was issued to the Planned Parenthood facility in Columbia. Are you familiar with that license?
Yes.
And were you engaged in any way with the issuance of that license?
Only emailing it after, upon the direction of my bureau chief.
Okay. Let's step back a little bit. Who's your bureau chief?
John Langston,
John Langston. And what's his title with DHSS?
bureau chief.
Bureau chief.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what are his responsibilities as bureau chief?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. But you say you you communicated with John Langston about the issuance of the permit to the Planned Parenthood facility in Columbia?
Correct.
Approximately how many communications do you think you had with him?
Just one.
Just one?
Mm-hmm.
Was that an email or was that a conversation?
Just a conversation.
Okay. And other than that conversation, any other conversations, emails, any other communications?
No.
Okay. And what was that communication from him?
To go ahead and issue the license.
Okay. Is that part of your standard process in your role of being a clerical person in issuing an ambulatory surgery center license to have a supervisor specifically call you and tell you to issue a license?
If I have any questions, then that is normal.
Okay. In this circumstance of issuing this license to the Columbia facility for Planned Parenthood, did you have any questions about the issuance of the license?
No.
You did not?
No.
Okay. So how did that conversation go?
He just told me to go ahead and issue the license on, I think it was the 17th.
Okay. Do you remember what day you got that call?
I don't know what July 17th is, but I think it's a Friday, I
Okay.
think.
But you believe it was July 17th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you issue the license on that day?
I did.
Okay. Is there a date on that license of when it was issued?
There is.
What is the date of when that license was issued?
July 15th.
If you got the call and actually issued the license on July 17th, why is the issuance date of the license July 15th?
We were told to hold up on issuing the license until further notice, so I didn't process it that day until he told me on the 17th to go ahead and issue it.
Okay. Why were you told to hold up on issuing the license?
I don't know.
Did anyone, in fact, tell you to hold up on issuing the license?
He did.
What day was that?
It was on the 15th.
All right. So that's a separate communication from the one on the 17th that you just told me about.
Correct.
Okay. Did you have, other than those two communications, did you have any other communications with him?
No.
Okay. What did he tell you on the 15th when you talked to him?
Hold up until he tells me to go ahead and issue it.
Okay. Did he tell you why he was asking you to hold up on that permit?
No.
Okay. But you complied and you held up the permit?
Yes.
Okay. But it was ready to go, I'm assuming, on the 15th with the date of the 15th on it.
Correct.
And then, when was the 15th a Friday? I can look. It's okay.
Okay.
It just seems to me off the top of my head it maybe. Oh, it was a Wednesday.
Okay. So it's
But then you didn't hear from him until 2 days later when he called you on the 17th and told you to issue the license.
correct.
Why didn't you change the date to the actual day that it was issued?
He didn't tell me to make any changes on it. He just said, go ahead.
Right,
and
but you as the
issue.
person issuing the permit, wouldn't you want the permit to reflect the date it was actually issued?
That's his decision. It's not mine.
Let me ask you this. Did he know that the date of the 15th was on that permit when he called you on the 17th?
I believe so.
Did he tell you specifically to not change the date to the true date that it was issued?
No.
All right. I do want to, and you've been very helpful, and I do want to make something perfectly clear, though. It is very important that you be candid today with the committee.
Okay.
And I do want to point you specifically to Chapter 105.050 and Chapter 105.055, which are specific statutory provisions in the state of Missouri that say that no agency or anyone in an agency can direct an employee to not be open and candid with a legislative committee. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Okay. So I just want to assure you that as you sit here, it's okay to be candid with us. And I'm assuming that you would be nothing but I just want to comfort you that that is in fact the case.
I am being truthful.
No, I understand that. I just want to comfort any concern you may have about testifying here today.
Okay.
So I do want to ask you this. So were you specifically told to leave the date of the 15th on there?
No.
Okay. But you believe that that he knew that in fact it did have the 15th on it?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
And why do you believe that?
Just because he didn't tell me to change it.
Okay. And then I want to ask you this. In your capacity of issuing these licenses, and I believe you said over 1,000 probably
In the
last 10 years. In addition to just the clerical work of just hitting print on a printer and printing a license, are you involved in any way in making a determination that when an ambulatory surgery center license is issued, that actually all of those statutory requirements in Chapter 197 and all those regulatory requirements at 19 CSR 30-30, that all of those are complied with before you issue the permit for the license?
Yes.
Okay. What is your role in assuring compliance before you issue that?
Make sure the application's notarized. We check with the Secretary of State's office to see that they do have a valid business license. But other than that.
Right. And the reason I ask you that, I just want to make it clear, and so the committee understands, that whether or not your role is just you sit at a desk and somebody says, print the license, and you print the license, or is your role more involved where you say, okay, I look through the file and I make sure that this requirement is met and this requirement is met before I issue the permit? I'm just trying to figure out what your role is.
I am just an office support assistant, really.
So would you be more just somebody who hits print and prints the license, or are you somebody more that really looks through the file to make sure that everything that is needed for the license to be issued is actually there in the file and complied with?
As far as that application, like I said, I go through the routine steps as any application, whether it be a surgery center or any other licensed facility.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did you have any concern when you issued that license,
No.
or at any time before that,
No.
that things weren't complied with that needed to be complied with both in statutory and regulatory sections?
No.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Senator Under.
Thank you, Tracy. Tracy, do you pronounce your name Roark or Rourke?
Roark.
Roark, okay. Ms. Roark, just a few follow-up questions. So Senator Schaefer was exploring with you your role in issuing these licenses, and you mentioned you review the file. What sort of things are in that file?
There are previous license applications. So I kind of compare with the previous year to the current year to see if any significant changes have been made.
For renewals, of course. Correct. Okay. Of course, this wasn't a renewal.
Correct.
Right. In that file, does it have things like a floor plan and architectural drawing of the surgery center space?
Some facilities do.
Was an architectural drawing or a floor plan, was that included in the application of this Planned Parenthood facility?
No.
Was there an inspector's report where an inspector had say, because the regs are very specific about widths of hallways and male and female changing rooms, surgical scrub areas. Was information about any of that in the file that you were reviewing?
No.
Is it in other files of other surgery center applications?
It can be if they are doing some reconstruction.
Or what about if it's a brand new permit?
We would keep any construction documents in there, but I don't review them.
Were there any construction documents in this application for this Planned Parenthood facility?
No.
Was there anything in that file that documented the widths of the hallway, or documented that there was a surgical scrub area, or documented that there was a male or female changing area?
Not with this application, no.
No. Was there any report of an inspector who had been to the site with, let's say, a tape measure and had done any of those measurements and made any of those determinations?
I don't recall anything.
Okay. So no floor plan, no. Was there just in the text of some document? Was there an assertion that the procedure room is this many feet by this many feet wide, the halls are this many feet wide, and so on?
If there was, I
you don't
didn't see
remember.
it.
You didn't see it. And to your knowledge, there was no inspector ever went to this site and did any of the measurements or made any of the determinations that I'm asking about?
We did do a licensure survey, but I don't know if he did any. I wasn't there. I wasn't involved in that survey.
What's involved in a licensure survey?
Again, I'm just a clerical support. I'm not a surveyor.
Okay. Now, you said in response to Senator Schaefer's question, I believe his question was, would it be routine for you to talk to Mr. Langston, your supervisor, about each and every surgery center application? And you said, only if I have questions. Is
Only
that
if I have
correct?
questions, or if they're renewals, I don't. Initials, I periodically do have questions as far as the effective date.
So sometimes on the face of the new application, it's obvious to you that everything's in order and that the permit can be issued properly.
Correct.
Was that the case with this one?
As far as what I could see, it was a routine one.
But there was none of the, but there wasn't. You said in some new applications there sometimes is a floor plan, a survey, some sort of architectural drawing or something. There wasn't any of that in this one.
No.
Okay. Was there anything specific that bothered you about this application that you spoke to Mr. Langston on the 15th?
No.
No. But on the 15th, he told you don't issue the report today, or don't issue the permit today.
Correct.
And so, are you familiar with the requirements in the regulations as to for licensing of surgery centers, the widths of hallways, the requirements about scrub rooms, the requirements about changing areas?
No, I'm not.
And ultimately, if you had any issues, you would go to Mr. Langston and ask him, as you did on the 13th.
Yes.
Okay, but he didn't tell you why on the 13th he's to not issue the. I'm sorry, the 15th not to issue the report that day. But it is your testimony that on Friday, July 17th, he told you to issue that.
Correct.
That permit.
Yes.
And to your knowledge, was there any on-site inspection, any construction documents, any architectural documents that added to the file or produced for the department between July 15th and July 17th?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Thank you.
Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Good.
Good. I just have a couple questions. So I want to explore the 15th and the 17th again. So you received a call on the 15th. It had been approved but not issued, right, on the 15th?
Well, it's not a call. I sit right outside of his office, so he just come out and told me to hold up on issuing the license until further notice.
So it was a verbal communication between him and you. But on that date, it had already been approved, correct? It had just not been issued?
Correct.
Okay. Was there any communication between the 15th and the 17th? Because on the 17th, your testimony was that it was okay then to now issue the
Yes.
permit that had previously been approved. Was there any communication between the 15th and the 17th
No.
in regard to that application?
No.
Okay. Your testimony earlier was that in your position and in your experience, you've issued maybe 1,000 of these permits over 10 years. Is that give or take?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. Had there ever been an occasion that you recall where a permit had been approved but not issued the same day?
I don't recall. The only reason why we wouldn't is if there were, questions from, upper management, but I wouldn't know.
But your testimony is so that you can't recall another scenario where it had been approved but then issued 2 days later.
No.
Okay. Did that strike you as odd at the time?
No.
No,
Just-
didn't seem unusual? Okay.
No.
Were there any tasks that you were given to follow up on anything between the 15th and the 17th?
No.
In your capacity, which you've described as a clerical position, you are sort of, if I want to just understand your role, you are making sure that the file is in order, and if it is in order, then you are signing off on behalf of the department. Is that an accurate portrayal?
I issue the license, correct?
Okay. In this particular license, is there anybody else that has supervisory other than Mr. Langston that's sort of in charge of this particular file or application?
I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any other
Okay.
one.
So as far as your testimony would be today that the only two individuals in the department that were working on this particular file were you and Mr. Langston?
I don't know that answer. I know I take my instructions or directions from John.
Okay, so he could have been communicating with other folks
Right.
unbeknownst to you. Okay. I notice in the later in some of the documents that have been produced, there is a request for a waiver of some of the requirements as it relates to, I think, some bedding and some width requirements that would normally in a center like this be required, but a request for a waiver was actually made. Does that come to you, specifically that particular request, but in general in these types of files, do those come to you for you to do anything with those, or do those go directly to Mr. Langston?
I don't have anything to do with that process.
Okay, that's not anything that you deal with.
No.
Okay, do you know who does deal with that?
We do have a waiver committee, but I'm not sure who was all on that committee.
Okay, so there's a committee that's organized that reviews these waiver applications and makes a decision.
Yes.
Okay, how many people would you say are on that committee?
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
not involved in that process.
Thank you for your testimony.
Let's go to Senator Sater and Senator Riddle will come back.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good. I do have I'm a little concerned about the process that how the license was. The ambulatory surgical center licenses. Usually, how long does it take for a facility, once they apply for the license, to either be approved or disapproved?
It depends on how busy I am at work, or it could take up to 2
I know
weeks.
other licenses, such as a liquor license, sometimes take months and months and months.
no.
You know,
No. It may be 2 weeks.
maybe 2 weeks. That's a pretty short period of time on a surgery center. But that's the process.
That's the
But I know that, so your office is just right outside Mr. Langston's, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so he is your supervisor, I would assume.
Yes.
And when he issues you an order to go ahead and release the license, Is that always an oral order, or does it have to be in writing for your sake, for your protection?
I usually issue them without his approval unless I have some questions or he comes to me first and tells me to not process it until further notice.
Okay, so
But on routinely, I do it without any direction from him.
okay, so was this unusual that he was involved in this
Uh,
issuance?
Outside the routine.
It was outside the
monthly-
routine.
Monthly license processing.
Do you know why he was involved?
No, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Senator Riddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Tracy.
I
Can you clarify for me so I kind of understand your job and what happens before this stuff gets to you, the paperwork, and then from you? So when a facility requests that they be issued a license, does everything start with you? Does all the paperwork come to you?
The request does, and I issue what we call a license packet
Okay.
as far as what
And then what
documents are
happens?
required. The facility will fill out the application, send in their fee. That paperwork goes to the fee receipts, and then it comes up to our office to process.
Okay, so are you the one that reviews it to see if they have items that have to be in place, for instance, dimensions of a
No.
particular, who does that?
We have an engineering department with the Department of Health. Or the surveyors would. I don't have any.
So do you who normally reviews those things prior to you getting the information with a rubber stamp that says, okay, now you can issue the license?
Our department engineering,
Now, who is your department engineer?
his name's David East, is my contact.
David
East,
Ease?
EAST.
So the paperwork will go to him prior to coming to you?
No, only on construction problems or issues would it go to him.
Okay, so if we have a new license, is it indicated in the paperwork that there are things that have to be in place?
No, I would not know by that license application if there was or was not.
So then is David East the person who reviews that prior to sending you the paperwork?
On any construction problems or issues, he would. And these are just,
I'm trying to follow the path, I guess, and so I'm getting a bit confused as to how many hands touch this before it comes to you.
again, like a normal newly opened surgery center, that would be the process. But since this one was an existing one before, I'm not sure.
Okay, so an application was requested
Correct?
by Planned Parenthood in Columbia from you,
From the department.
from the department, but did it come to you?
It went to our mailbox, yes. And I
And then
monitor
from
that
the
mailbox.
mailbox, where does it go?
I print it and,
So you picked it up from the mailbox, correct?
yes, the request.
And then what did you do from there?
I would email them a registration packet,
Okay,
a licensing packet.
okay. From there, what happens?
They send that packet along with their fee to our fee receipt unit to process.
Okay, so who is in charge of the fee receipt process? So they get the whole packet,
Yes.
correct?
And I don't know who oversees that department.
So you don't know who received the packet,
No,
but someone does.
someone does.
Do you know who knows that?
I'm not sure who the supervisor is over the fee receipt unit.
So whomever received it in the fee receipt department,
Mhm.
then from where did it go?
They send it up to me.
So it comes to you.
Yes.
So how does the engineer get involved in this?
Like I said, that's on a routine renewal.
So who decides if it's routine?
If it's an ongoing license renewal, that's the process.
So is that what this is?
This one here is Yes, because they had been licensed prior.
So I'm trying to figure out whose hands had this packet prior to giving it to you.
Just me.
So then you're the one that decided whether they had complied with all the regulations for their ambulatory.
Just for
surgical
the
center.
licensing application part. I review the license application itself. I don't have anything to do with the
So
construction,
Who does that?
like the engineering department or John Langston. I don't have anything to do with that.
So, Mr. Chairman, how do we follow the trail of this application?
I think you're doing a great job setting out that trail right now. I think obviously we're going to have to hear from Mr. Langston. But let me just, and I don't want to keep going, but I mean, because again, this gets back to what I asked you about this committee trying to establish your role in this process of whether or not you just hit a print button on a computer and print a license, or whether or not you're involved in any way with actually making a compliance determination.
I am not.
Okay.
So do you have a check? You don't have a checklist things that you look for before you issue a license?
No.
So for these, I'm concerned, these are surgical centers, and so someone should be seeing that our state regulations and laws are followed for the safety of the individuals who are utilizing those surgical centers. So if you don't do that, then somebody should be doing it in the state?
Well, that's a different process. We do on-site surveys, but that has nothing to do with the renewal application.
But this is a new license, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so who is William Coble?
He is essentially my boss, John Langston's supervisor.
So what did he have to do with this application?
I don't know.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, that would be a question that I have, is I want to know whose hands touched this application through the process. And so
That's how, and I mean, that's exactly what we're here for. And the questions you're asking are exactly where we need to go, because
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you ultimately are the one that issues it. Somebody has to be able to verify that we are issuing licenses to surgical centers that are complying with the safety standards that the state, our citizens
I understand.
require. So do you have any other information about the handling of this packet that would help clarify to me who decides the things that are out there? And
I take my directions from John, my supervisor.
okay, so we need to hear from John Langston, and we need to hear from Mr. Coble, and then who is above Mr. Coble?
I think Dean Linneman is.
I'm sorry,
Dean Linneman.
Dean Linneman could possibly be involved in this, and then we also need to hear from David East as well.
He's our engineer. He's our engineering, our department's engineer.
So can you tell me, if you get an application such as the one that we're talking about today, and you would have to verify that the compliances have been met, who do you talk to check to see if that is accurate for you to be able to issue the license?
I do not, on that application, it doesn't require those type of compliance verification.
Well, on any surgical center, do we have those?
On the applications?
Yes,
no.
ma'am. So how do we know that they are a safe surgical center?
Our engineering department will review their floor plans and give them the approval or
Okay.
denial.
Okay, well, you can see, I appreciate, thank you for your answers, but you can see, Mr. Chairman, why I am a bit confused here.
I understand, but I mean, the purpose of this committee is to find out the truth. And, having taken hundreds of depositions in the last 20 years, I will tell you very rarely do you ever talk to one witness who gives you the entire story. Usually people have different parts of different things, and you have to talk to all of them. So I do appreciate your being here. I do have a couple questions, and I'll come back to anybody else too, but can you tell me what's the difference in an on-site initial license survey and an on-site inspection when issuing a license? Do you know the difference between those two things? You don't? Okay. That's fair enough. Let me ask you this. Is there a requirement that before an ambulatory surgery center license is issued, that there be a physician who is there with certain requirements being on site and having privileges at a hospital within 15 travel miles from the facility?
I don't know that.
You don't know that. So you issue licenses without knowing whether or not that's met in an application or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, my word.
All right, hang on. Couple things. First of all, do you know when this application came in to the department?
I don't recall.
I've seen I have seen a document that says early January of 2015. Does that sound right?
I know it was the first part of the year. I don't.
And I believe in
think so.
response to Senator Sater's question, you said sometimes these things only take 2 weeks.
For the mailing process, for them to send on a renewal, a routine one, it usually takes around 2 weeks.
Okay. What about 7 months, as this one apparently took? Is that in the normal course of how long it takes to usually issue these ambulatory surgery center licenses?
No.
Would you say that's considerably longer?
Yes.
Have you ever had an application that was pending for 7 months before the license was issued?
Yes.
How many times do you think out of over 1,000?
I don't know, maybe 20 or 30.
Is it fair to say it's pretty uncommon?
It is.
And do you know why it took 7 months to issue this permit?
I do not.
All right, couple more things. And I wasn't quite clear from Senator Riddle's questions. Was this treated as a routine renewal, or was this treated as a new license issuance?
To me, it was a renewal.
Okay, and let's talk about that, because in the context of a renewal, a lot of times you'll have a license that's issued, and whether that's DHSS or DNR or anybody else, they issue a license. And let's say that license is good for 1 year. And then before that year expires, the applicant will submit a new application before the old one expires. And then the department would look at that and they'd issue a new license. Would that be your general understanding of a renewal?
Yes.
Okay. When you issued this license, was there an actual existing license in place at the time that you issued this one?
One that had expired.
Right. So there was not an active license in place.
Correct.
So it was not a renewal. It was a new license issuance, wasn't it?
As far as this process, yes.
Anything else? Okay. Senator Schmidt?
Just one quick follow-up. So on the 17th then, when it was actually the previously approved license was issued, what time of day was that issued?
I think it was in the afternoon. I'm not sure.
Would it have been before or after 5 p.m.?
My hours are 8 to 5.
So it wouldn't have been after 5?
No.
Okay. So sometime on Friday afternoon? Okay.
Senator Riddle?
I need you to clarify something for me. So what do you personally do differently from a renewal for a license or a new license?
From a renewal to an initial, on the initials, I wait for directions from John to issue.
So you don't determine if a facility gets a new license.
Correct.
John does that.
Yes.
He just tells you whether to click to issue.
Right.
Okay, but you said that you counted this license as a renewal.
Yes.
So then what did that mean? So it was up to you to issue?
On a routine, yes, but Wednesday when I was processing the application, he said hold off on sending it until further notice. So I just set it aside.
So I guess I'm a bit confused. How did you determine that this was a renewal, not an initial license?
Because they had already had existing license prior. They had been licensed before.
So anybody who has been licensed before is considered a renewal, not an initial, even if they've let it lapse?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Shute?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm Jill, by the way. We're calling you Tracy, so Jill, welcome to call me Jill. I actually have, so you at the end of the day make sure that the pieces of paper that you need are in your file, and you issue the license. But you're not involved in the inspection process or in the processes that go on prior to determining whether, particularly a new facility, I know this, we're calling this renewal because this facility was already built, the footprint was there. But basically what you do is say, yes, I have the paper that I need in here to go ahead and give them this license. Is that correct?
Yes.
That pretty much sum up. So, Mr. Chairman, we have all kinds of paperwork that this committee subpoenaed, and I wasn't here last time, but I do know within our paperwork, the timeline is pretty clear that on March 20th was when the application for licensure was received by the department. On April.
Wait, what day did you say it was?
March 20th, 2015.
Then why do we have a document that says the application was received in January of 2015?
I don't know, but I know that the
Those are the
most
things that we would
recent
like to find out.
application, well, and that on April 3rd, there was an inspection and Planned Parenthood was found not to be in compliance. There were 5 things that needed to be done. Clearly, I'm not sure what side we're sort of arguing for here. Is it better to have it shorter and not to have these things complied with? Or is the longer time frame appropriate when there are things that are not meeting what the inspection requires and what our law requires them to meet? I feel like Ms. Roark is sort of the victim here of us trying to get information from her that she clearly doesn't have. We also have all kinds of information about who's in charge, and certainly we have the head of the department here. If we want to know who we need to talk to about these things, let's get to those people instead of, I feel like we're trying to intimidate somebody into giving us answers. She's continued to give us the same answers. She doesn't have the information about who goes through those processes. Let's get to the people that do, because if our goal here is to find out whether Planned Parenthood obeyed the law, then let's go and look at and see whether Planned Parenthood is obeying the law.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions?
May I address something that Senator Shute said?
Do you have a question for the witness,
I
Senator?
do not.
Okay. Any further questions for the witness? Ms. Roark, thank you very much. You're free to go.
Thanks.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we take about a 10-minute break so everybody can stretch their legs? We do have a speaker out in the hall now. We didn't have the overflow room, but if anybody wants to stand out in the hall, you will be able to hear the proceedings. Let's go ahead and let's take about a 10-minute break, and then we will come back. With that, we'll be in recess for 10 minutes. Hey.
That was my question.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, just hang on 1 second. Okay.
So just tell them that's as straight as we can play it, because if we have people this also
Right. Hang on 1 sec.
Quick couple of comments on this.
So, okay, that's right. Let me touch Mike real quick. That battery's Mike? Yes. Just like.
So, two quick questions. Because Rudy needs more.
I saw him fall asleep.
Oh my God.
Okay, go ahead.
What are you, so these next few witnesses?
Well, we have one more witness who's the director. And really, this is one of our previous witnesses. She's the one who actually issued the license. And so there were a lot of questions about what her role was. You know, does she actually make any determination that there's compliance in the application process before the state then issues a license to an ambulatory surgery center? And I think what we heard is that she really doesn't. She doesn't make any determination. In this case, her supervisor called her in and said, issue that license, and she issued it. And so, you know, so in the progress of things, we'll just kind of follow that up the chain and see what determinations are made. Because again, you know, when you look at the documents that were produced in response to our subpoenas, so in addition to the subpoenas for these witnesses, it appears that there are aspects of the law that have to be complied with before the license is issued. But there does not appear to be sufficient documentation in the file to show there was in fact compliance with some of those. And that's what we'll really get to with our next witness, who will be the director of health and services. He's an expert.
Based on the questions that were asked, there are some concerns about whether or not the facility itself, its layout, and what it was supposed to have.
Well, I think, you know, we could be wrong on this, but it appears there's a general belief it does not meet the requirements. And so when, you know, 5-foot doorways and certain hallway widths, which are required in an ambulatory surgery center, so that if something happens and an ambulance responds, that a standard size gurney can actually get into the door, get through the hall, and get into the room where the patient is, which is that's why that requirement is in the law. This facility actually does not meet that. Now, maybe it does, and there's simply nothing in the file that shows that. But it appears at a minimum for some of those requirements, the department granted waivers of those legal requirements, and that's something we'll also get into.
And is it real quick, the questions here, the due diligence, the questions are asked before this meeting?
Oh, absolutely. And I think if there's anything, I think this rail arc was truthful, but I think it really didn't show, it didn't fill in a lot of the gaps that we see in what's not in the file. So now we'll talk to the director, and maybe she can answer, I hope she can answer his question. Right. In my world, for example, in the environmental context, things are usually very structured. Right. Right. I know, for example, that when several years ago, we were involved in an investigation into equalized Lake Ozarks, we got $60,000. Yeah, which we found out later from the vendor that DNR tabled it to, that they took in 60,000 pages and told the vendor, they were hard copies, told the vendor, scan them all and make each page its own individual PDF. So you couldn't search.
You couldn't search them.
Yeah, so do I know that happened? I've been a lawyer long enough to know what happened.
I know that. Whatever that probably would be a third of what
Okay.